All right, a ton of you guys asked, so here's the video for it. This is my one and only personal near-death experience very earlier on in my diving tenure, and yes, I have PTSD from it. So I don't remember how many dives I had under the belt at the time, but it wasn't very much. It was probably like maybe 200 or something like that. So this is my scuba tank on my back. Between me and the tank is a personal flotation device. It's actually called a buoyancy compensator. So it then is attached to this hose right here. So at the time of this incident, I was diving twin tanks, meaning there's two of these things on my back. They're steel 120 cubic foot tanks, and there's two of them. Combined weight is around 130 pounds or so, maybe a bit more. I haven't even started the dive yet. I was actually just walking into the water when this happened. So this incident happened essentially at the shoreline. So I was starting the dive. I had my fins in my hand and my mask backwards on my head. So it wasn't actually on my face. It was just spun around, kind of like a backwards baseball hat on my head. Walked in the water, my air tank was on. Walked into the water and I waded up to approximately my belly button. And then I turned around, faced the shoreline, and then I kicked off to float on my back. And that's typically how I used to put on my fins, is I would float on my back, kind of like a river otter. If you see an image of that before, they float on their back and they do everything on their belly. So I used to float on my back and then put my feet up above me and then put my fins on that way. That's something I don't do anymore. That's the PTSD. So what happened was my air tank was on. I pushed off from the shoreline, floating into the water, unbeknownst to me, because I'm an idiot. My buoyancy compensator wasn't actually inflated. So meaning that when I kicked off, I promptly just sank to the ocean floor. Now remember, I was only up to my belly button in water. And then when I kicked off, I just sank to the bottom, the ocean floor. But I'm now in approximately 5 to 6 feet of seawater with no mask on, no regulator in my mouth, and no fins because I wasn't ready yet. I was just starting the dive, right? I wasn't even starting the dive. I was just getting kitted up. So of course, that's not a problem. I reached over to my buoyancy compensating device, press my valve to inject air into it, except unbeknownst to me at the time, this hose wasn't attached correctly, and it promptly just blew the hose off like this. It just became detached. It's no longer. So when I'm hitting this thing and it's got no air, not injecting air, I'm still laying on the ocean floor and thinking, oh, well, that's odd. So I'm in my dry suit. So I hit the same, I have a hose going from my tank into my dry suit. I hit the inflator valve in my dry suit, but because I don't have my fins on and I'm laying on my back, my feet just shot up in the air or in the water because it's the lightest part of me. My core had all of the scuba tank weight, right? So now I'm upside down in the water column. I say, well, that's no good. I don't have fins on. I can't see. I have no air. My regulator isn't anywhere near me because I wasn't ready for the dive yet. So then what I did is I try to put my regulator into my mouth. Problem is, I'm upside down. The regulators are full of water and they can't really purge when they're upside down. They can purge when they're upside right, but not when they're upside down. Anyway. So luckily for me, Tony, my dive partner, was within eyesight of me, was right next to me. And so he's diving the same configuration as me. So his regulator is on a 7-foot hose as well too. So I'm in around 5-6 feet of water. So he's floating at the top. He doesn't have his fins on or anything like that either. He wasn't quite ready. He couldn't quite rescue me because he had no propulsion because he didn't have his fins on. So he's dropped his regulator down to me on a 7-foot hose, like the nice long thing. And I just laid on the ocean floor with this regulator in my mouth and this hose running all the way up because that's all I could see. I just held on to that thing with my dear life until I could actually breathe. And then we took a few minutes to sort things out afterwards. He helped me out of the water, promptly went into shock. I threw up. And then I left all my dive gear at the bottom, went up to the top, Tony called the fire department, which was like 1 minute away because they're just outside of the scuba park. They came down, gave me oxygen, which I was on anyway because I had my own oxygen. To this day, I do not float on my back to put on my fins anymore. I walk into the water, I wade in, and I put my fins on. I reach down standing and put my fins on doing that. So yeah, to this day, it's like thousands of dives. I've never done that ever again. There's my story. Yeah, so scuba divers that follow me, take that as a lesson.